Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'd like to continue our discussion on Microsoft Word and discuss how to create an automatic bibliography within Word. This is going to be a continuation of our series. If you remember last time we talked a little bit about creating automatic cross-referencing in Word, and you'll see that this is a very similar flavor. So if you haven't watched our previous video, I'd recommend going ahead and doing that first. I'll leave a link for that down in the description. So with that being said, why don't we jump into this topic of how to create an automatic bibliography within Word. So before we talk about automatic bibliographies, maybe we should talk about a normal bibliography so later we can compare the difference. If you recall, a bibliography is simply a list of references or citations to other works that you'd like to refer to in a document. And again, I think it's easiest to look at a concrete example, so let's pull up a small sample document. In fact, why don't we just go ahead and use this same document we developed in the previous tutorial as an example. Now, here's the document we have, and let's say there's a location where you'd like to add some kind of citation or reference to another work. For example, right here, this payload right here was referred to and discussed in another paper. Now, instead of putting all of that information in this document, we'd like to simply cite the other document which contains that information. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can add a reference or a citation to another source. So why don't we first go ahead and look at the quote-unquote wrong way to do this. Alright, so the first thing to do is to find a complete citation to the desired paper or reference. And to do this, a really great tool, in case you haven't found this already, is Google Scholar. So I'm just going to go type in Google Scholar into Google and search for the paper I'm interested in. So the one that I'm looking for is something like flight testing and ADS-B equipped small UAS in a GPS denied environment. Something like that. You hit enter and look, it finds the paper no problem. It's really nice here. So you get a little bit of a reading, and if the authors or the copyright holder allows you to view it, you can probably just click on this to view the entire paper. But we don't actually need the entire paper in this case. We just need a citation or a reference so other people can find this paper if they're looking for it. So to do that, I'll just click on this little quote or this cite button here in Google Scholar, and you'll see here's the complete citation. So if you look at this long enough, you can basically see who the authors of the paper were, what the title of the paper is, where it was published, all of that kind of good stuff. So one way to do this is, again, we're looking at the sort of naive way to do this. So the naive way to do this might be to say, oh, okay, here's the complete citation. You know, pick whichever style you like, MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver, whatever. Pick the one you're looking for, and maybe I'll just copy all of this information, come back to my paper here, and maybe what I'll do here is start a section at the very end of my paper, and I'll call it the bibliography. Maybe let's go ahead and change this thing to a heading like the other ones, and I might just go in here and put like the number 1. Here's my first reference here, and I'll just paste in that information I just got. Okay, you can even do things like make it italic in the appropriate locations. The name of the conference is usually saved in italics. Now I've got this citation in here, but it's kind of hard-coded. And again, what you could do at this point is I could come back to where I want to refer to it in my document here. So for example here, like we said earlier, I want to describe and say that, tell the reader that if they want more information about this payload, they can look at that paper I just cited. So they could say, you know, I could write in here, for further information on the payload, see 1. And again, notice that I just typed in or hard-coded in 1, and then expect the reader to be able to come down here and find it in the bibliography. And again, this is all fine and dandy, and it works well, but I think we run into the exact same problem you saw in the previous tutorial where we were talking about automatic cross-referencing. In this case, you have a hard-coded, immutable, unchangeable bibliography. If you come in here and add more papers, or you want to reorder the order in which they're cited, or you want to change the style of how this citation shows up, you're a little bit stuck because you've now hard-coded into this document all of those references. So what I would like to submit is, again, this is sort of the wrong way to do it here, but it's got the bones of what we'd like to do. So let's go ahead and delete the hard-coded entries, and we'll look at a better way to do this. So in fact, I'm just going to delete this entire section, come up here, and delete this again right here. And I'll just leave a placeholder for where I'm going to eventually add a automatic citation, all right? So why don't we take a look at how to add an automatic citation in the right way. So in order to do this, let's go ahead and come up here to the references part of the ribbon here. And you'll notice here there's a section called citations and bibliographies, and there's a button called manage sources. That's actually what we're going to want to click here. But you know what, before I do this, let's go ahead and put Word on one side, and we'll put our Google Scholar page here on the other side of the screen so we can see both of them at the same time. We're going to need that in a second. Let's come back here to Word here and go just click on the Manage Sources button. And what you'll see is up comes this dialog here. So in this dialog, you'll see it's going to allow us to add a list of different citations or references. So the first thing I want to do, I notice here it's completely empty because I've never used this before. So let's go ahead and click on New to create a new citation. And again, you come up with this dialog box, and you'll see that what this allows us to do now is create citations to books, journal articles, conference proceedings, reports, websites, all these different kind of things. So looking back over at the Google Scholar page here on the left, we again notice that the work that we'd like to cite here is a conference proceeding. So what I should do here is I'll just go ahead and find conference proceeding, click on that, and I can just start filling in all of these sections. And again, there's got a lot of nice tools here. For example, authors. I know some of these papers have lots of authors, and it's very difficult to put the first or the last name in the proper order. So if I just go ahead and click on edit here, I get this one. So let's go ahead and add some of these authors. You know, and then you can go ahead and click add. Maybe I'll do just a few of these just to illustrate how this works. And et cetera, et cetera. There's more authors on this paper, but I think this would take me, well, you know what, there's actually not that many. Let's just go ahead and finish this off. Who else? Selena was an author here, and then we also had Karatau Zachary. Okay, so here's our authors. Again, you can rearrange the order to make sure it matches the citation. I think that's pretty good here. So all of that information is in there. Now what I can start doing is I can start copying and pasting in things like the title here, when the paper was published here, the name of the conference, so it was the AIAA Flight Testing Conference, etc., right? So you can add all of that stuff here, and the one thing I want to call to your attention here is when you're adding all this information, Word is going to go ahead and assign a unique tag name down here. So this is basically a unique identifier which identifies this particular reference. So now that I'm finished, let's go ahead and just hit OK. And you'll notice here what happens is you see this paper show up in both locations. We'll go over what the differences of these are in a second here. But for now, I think it's safe to say maybe the easiest way to understand that here is we're going to see over here on the left is going to be a list of all of the references that you've built up over time here. And the ones on the right here are the ones that are currently embedded or in the current document that you're working on. Again, that's going to make a little bit more sense in a couple of minutes. So for now, let's just suffice to say that we've sufficiently added enough information to generate this citation in Word. So I'll go ahead and hit close. Now that I've done this, all right, let's make Word maximized again so we have a little bit more space to see. What I can do now is I find this location where I want to cite that paper, and I come up here to my references section, and instead of hard coding in a number, I'm just going to come over here to this Insert Citation button and click on it, and you'll notice here that that paper we just added to the bibliography is available. So I'll go ahead and click it here, and you'll see now I've made a citation to that paper. What I can now do is let's go ahead down to the bottom of the paper, the very end, and again, this is where I wanted to put in the bibliography. Last time, in a naive fashion, we just hard-coded that information into here, but instead, now what I can do is, again, come up to the Citations and Bibliography section. If I just click on this Bibliography button, you'll see I have many different ways to add different styles of bibliographies here. So let's just do the pretty much a standard bibliography. I'll go ahead and click on that, and you see that information gets automatically added to the document here. Furthermore, you're able to freely change the style. So we're using IEEE style, but you can get APA or Chicago and MLA, and all this will automatically be updated. So as you can see, this is a much more robust way of adding citations, because now if we were to change the order of citations or add more papers within this current document, it would automatically update, much like those cross references we talked about earlier. In fact, you can even see that when I hover over this, it's not just normal text, right? It's that highlighted in gray stuff, which basically indicates this is an automatically updated and maintained reference system. Similarly, if I come back up here to where I actually use the citation, again, you see it's here in gray, so it's automatically updated. The last thing I want to show you while we're poking around here is, let's go back to this Manage Sources section here. And if you noticed now in this current list, there's a check mark in front of the paper. Again, what that means here is that that source is actually cited in the current document here. So to make that a little bit more clear, why don't we just go ahead and add another paper or another book or another citation to this document. So for example, let's just come in here and say new, I don't know, let's make something up. Let's make a book like the dictionary. How about corporate author? Who made this? Merriam-Webster. I'm sure I'm spelling that wrong, but that's close enough. Let's call it the dictionary. Maybe the 2018 version. I don't know who published it. Let's make something up. Random House. Sorry, I know this is probably incorrect, but that'll serve for our purposes. So again, I'll go ahead and click OK to add that to our list of sources. And we see here that in the document, yeah, we've actually got two sources now, but only one of them is currently cited in the in this current paper that we're writing. So what I can do is I'll close this dialog box. Let's here. How about in the nomenclature? For more, I should change this style to be our normal text. For more information on difficult slash large words, please see a dictionary, right? And then let's add a citation to what we just created. So again, I'll come up here to References, insert citation, and I'll click on Dictionary here. And again, we see that that showed up as a number 1 here. Now we're back in the situation we saw last time where we have two sources here, which seem to be incorrectly referring to the exact same document. But we're just going to use our trick we saw last time here, and that was if I just go ahead and select all of the text in the document, so I'll Control A everything, and then what I can do is you can right-click on one of these gray things and hit Update Field, or the other trick here is you can also just hit F9 to update all of these automatic references, citations, bibliographies, everything in the document. So why don't I go ahead and do that? So I know you can't see me doing this right now, but what I'm going to do is just hit F9. And now you see, oh, that's correct. This is now 1. This is now a 2 here. And if we scroll down to the bibliography, you see we've got our dictionary reference and our conference paper. So that shows how to add automatic referencing here, automatic bibliographies here in Word. I want to show you one more feature of this here because as you can see, as you start going further and further into your career or using Word, you may want to build up a set of references that you can maintain here and use for all your future work. So let's take a look at how to create an XML file which contains all of your references that you can tote around and then load into documents appropriately. So first off, let's go ahead and hit Save here. All right, so what we want to do here is actually come back up here to the Manage Sources button. Just click here, and now in this dialog box that we saw earlier, let's just go ahead and make a note here that this says sources available in something that's called Master List. And if we click on this Browse button, what we're going to see here is Microsoft should show you actually where they're storing all of these references. It's stored in this XML file called sources.xml. So if you click up here, we can see the actual file path to that location. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to actually copy all of this file path here. And I guess I'll cancel this dialog here because all I really needed was that file path. And I'm going to go ahead and start a Windows Explorer here. And I'm just going to go to that location here. And we see, look, there's this file called sources.xml like we saw earlier. And if we were to open this thing up with something like Microsoft Edge or something that can understand XML, we'll see that this is basically a XML document listing all of the different sources that we've created here. In this case, it's just two here, right? There's this LUM17 and this MER18, which was the dictionary here. So this is great. What it's basically showing us is that this one file has all of the references that we have created and would like to use in our current document as well as our future documents. So what I would suggest doing is, instead of keeping it here in this weird esoteric directory, I would actually copy this entire file and I would move that to some location that is that you manage and you will back up and you'll maintain. So for the sake of illustrative purposes, let's just go ahead and stick it here on the C drive on my computer. I'll go ahead and start a new folder here, and I'll call this My Word References or something like that. You know, again, this is just a purely illustrative example here. So it's something to show that you can keep this file and leave it and store it in a location and maintain that for future use. All right, so let's go ahead and open that folder, and I will paste that file in here. And for giggles, let's go ahead and rename this. Maybe I'll call this LUM References, which is me, okay? Now what I can do here is, let's keep in mind that this is that file that we have just created. I'm gonna go ahead and let's again split the screen here. So I'll put that on one side and I'll put the Word document here on the other side. What I'm gonna do here is, again, come up here to the Manage Sources button here. And what I now want to do is, let's, instead of using this default XML file that we're just stuck in that random location, I would actually like it to load and be using my lumreferences.xml file over here. So it's as simple as just, again, clicking on Browse and then going to that location. So now I remember I stuck it in the C drive under, what is it? Oh yeah, My Word References, LUM References. And when I hit OK here, you're going to notice now it says sources available in LUM References. And right now it's identical, but what I can start doing is, again, let's just start adding files here. So I'm going to make something up. Again, John Smith here. Let's call this, you know, book 1. That's probably good enough. Let's just say this is in the year 2016 here. Let's go ahead and make another book here for illustrative purposes. Make a new one, and I'm going to call this thing, again, by John Smith here, but let's call this book 2 in the year 2017. So this guy's a pretty prolific author. Every year he seems to pump out a book here. John Smith with book 3 in the year 2018. Okay, so now, again, what we've got here is we've got a bunch of sources now, and if I close this dialog box and we come now to this LUM References document and take a look at it, we should see that this is now, you see, here's my book 1, here's my book 2, and here's my book 3. So we're updating and maintaining this list. So this one XML file is something that you probably want to now copy, save, and back up, because what you're going to want to do is just continually add more and more and more and more sources to this to build up an entire library of references that you can use for all sorts of future documents, whether that's papers, reports, proposals, just quick little blurbs. They can all reference this one XML file that you are generating that has your custom list of references that are related to the work that you do. Alright, so the picture that goes along with this analysis is we just generated this one XML file which we stored on our C drive, something called mywordreferences.xml. So this is our database of all of our citations, and it has all of these papers and books and things that we've created, as well as many of these other references that we would like to add in the future. Now, what we just said is we can now use this XML document, and if we generate some other document, let's call it document.a.docx. This document can now reference, for example, this LUM17 citation or this John Smith 2016 book in that document. And we can now generate, say, a second document, like document B. And this could also reference maybe that exact same John Smith 2016 book and maybe the John Smith 2018 book. So this is really nice because now we don't have to recreate all of those references in each one of these document A and B, because we can just pull from this XML document that we've created earlier. So the takeaway here is that different documents can use references from that same XML database. Now, The one red flag that might be going off in your head right now is just the way we draw in this picture. It makes it appear that there's a dependency in the sense that both document A and document B seem to refer to or depend on the XML file in order to find the references. And initially that's actually true. But what we're going to see is Word is actually really smart about this here. What happens is that when you add or use one of the references in the XML file, Word will actually embed a copy of that reference into the docx file. What that basically means is that they're actually not linked as this picture seems to illustrate here, in the sense that both document A and document B can be standalone files, and you don't actually need to carry around this XML file with the actual document. So document A and document B, you can email those out to friends or colleagues or anybody else just by themselves. Just send them the docx file, and embedded inside that docx file is the necessary citations that were copied from the XML file. So again, the XML file, which is your private reference database, can be just kept nice, safe on your computer. Nobody else has to know about all of your different citations, and the ones that matter can now be copied or embedded into document A and document B. So why don't we take a look at how that might function with a quick example. So we'll generate a very quick document A and a document B, and we'll refer to this XML file that we've just generated. Alright, so coming back to our document, I actually noticed that we already called this document actually document A.docx, but that's fine because it illustrated what we wanted to show, in the sense that this document file was referring to and using references from our custom-made lumreferences.xml file. So let's go ahead and close this right now, and let's go ahead and save. And let's create a small document called document B to illustrate how we could use this exact same database to insert citations into a completely separate document. So again, here we go. I've got my document here, and what I can do is go ahead and come up here to references, and I'm going to go ahead and click on manage sources. And again, we noticed that when you first start Word up, it defaults back to that master list, which was stored in that weird location somewhere on your C drive on your machine. And again, notice it only has these two references. It's missing those 3 John Smith references for books, because if you remember, those are what's stored in this lumreferences.xml file, not the default reference file. So what I first need to do is I need to load in my references. So I'm going to click here on Browse, and I'm going to go here to my C drive, my Word references, lum references, and I'll open this up. And now suddenly we see we've got access to all of those references that we would like to put in. So we can go ahead and choose, let's say I want the John Smith 2016. I'll just click on that one, and I'm going to click on copy. And what you see here is Word has done that operation we talked about, where it copied the data from this citation and embedded it into the actual document b.docx file. So it's sitting here in the actual file. So all of the references that you see here on the right-hand side are citations and references that are actually embedded in the docx file that you're working with. Everything you see here on the left side are all of the references available in lumreferences.xml. Okay, so the way to go about this is just pick the references you would like to use in your document and copy them over. Now, note here that these two are the ones in our example earlier that we said we were actually going to cite here. For giggles, let's move over maybe one of these other ones as well. So I'll move over this. So this first one I don't actually intend to use, but it has been copied and embedded into the docx file. I do intend to cite these other two books here within the document. So keep that in mind as we move forward, and we'll come back here and you'll see there's a slight difference that will show up. So what I'm going to do is I'll close this dialog here, and now in this document B book I can go ahead and start making references to the citations I'd like. So John Smith published a book in 2016 and 2018. So I would like to cite the 2016 one right here. So again, to do that, I just go up here to Insert Citations, and I'll click the 2016 book. And again, I'd like to cite this 2018 book here, so I'll go ahead and hit Insert Citations, hit Book 3. There we go. So here's my document. I can go ahead and now insert a bibliography by just clicking on bibliography. I can pick any one of these here. Heck, let's try a different style, references. And again, this thing gets used. Now notice here that although I only cited 1 and 2, all 3 showed up here in the references. That's because if I come back here to manage sources, you'll see that again all 3 of them are in the list of current sources or citations that are embedded into the document b.docx file. However, notice that only these 2 John Smith notations have a check mark in front. That's basically telling me, if you read the legend here, that these are actually citations that were referred to somewhere in the text. So I can quickly see that this extra citation is a little bit extraneous. It's sitting here in the document, but it is actually not located in the body of the document anywhere. So maybe the thing to do would be is just delete it. And again, if I click on delete, what that's going to do is it's going to delete this reference from the document b.docx file. It will not delete it from my XML file, from my database, which, because, you know, I really might want to delete or to use that citation later just for a different work. So if I go ahead and click delete, we see it's gone here. Now, this is a healthy looking citation in the sense that every citation that is embedded in the document is also cited and used in the body of text. So I can now go ahead and close this, come back over here, do my little trick of selecting everything. So Control A to select everything, and then just hit F9 to update, or again, come over to one of these fields and hit Update Field. So again, I like the F9 route, so I'll just go ahead and hit F9. And again, you see the references are automatically updated, so it shows the citations that are actually embedded in the document and cited in the body of text here. So let's go ahead and hit save to complete this, and I hope this was helpful. So again, if you want to take one thing away from this, the thing to remember here is the workflow is I would recommend that you go ahead and make your own dedicated .xml file which contains all of your different references and citations that you might use for anything in the future, right? This thing can be enormous and have tons and tons of citations. What you would then do is you would start your new document like we did over here and simply refer to this or create a link to this XML file by coming up here to my manage sources and then browsing for that location. Once you do that, you will have all of these hundreds of citations available for you. Once you have them all loaded in, just simply select the citations you'd like to use for the current document you're working on, and then just copy them over to embed them into the docx file. So at that point, we now have this standalone document b.docx, which I can email to other people or send around, and they do not need my XML references file in order to open this and to build it and to use the citations. So again, I hope this was helpful and will ease your workflow using Microsoft Word in the future. We'll have a couple more videos coming up that talk about different aspects of tips and tricks with words. So thank you very much, and I hope to catch you on the next video.